Cool. So thanks everyone for joining. I've got almost 40 people here. I'm sure a few more will join. Welcome everyone to the new meetup, 9th of June today in chilly Melbourne. I saw we've got a couple of international people joining as well from the UK, India, Indonesia. That's probably a bit warmer than here right now. So welcome to the day. We've got a really interesting topic, focus on universal API management, one of the new product sets that we've released just recently. I'll spend about 10 minutes as an introduction, a couple of announcements, you know the drill, and then I'll hand over to my esteemed colleague for the evening. So as always, we'll have a quiz later. We're using Quizzes for that. That is an app that you can download, or you can do it in the web browser of your phone. So more details on that later. Questions will be around all the topics that we're talking about today. So pay attention and stick around for the quiz at the end. Just an introduction, your local meetup leaders. So Adam Bond, Principal Solution Engineer based in Melbourne. Carlos, who's presenting today as well, Global Partner Engineer, also based in Melbourne, and myself, Daniel Soffner, part of the customer success team in MuleSoft, also based in Melbourne. So if you haven't signed up yet, or you really want to be notified of all future events that we're running, please go to meetups.mulesoft.com/Melbourne, or sign up for meetups in any other city. A lot of cities are still running virtual events, so you can just join any meetup if it's in a time zone that works for you. All right, mentioned that already. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're from. We always like to find out where our attendees are based in and what their background is. So that's the agenda for today. Normally we have 2 or 3 topics. Today we only have one topic, our new product, Universal API Management. It's actually a set of products that we're rolling out as part of that. And that's why we thought we spend a full hour on that topic today. We've got Carlos and Tim from the MuleSoft team here in Melbourne, who've presented or who've put together a couple of presentations and demonstrations on these new topics. And of course, there'll be lots of room for you to ask questions. And at the end, as mentioned, there's trivia and there's prizes to be won, as always. So first of all, a couple of announcements that we wanted to call out. MuleSoft Connect, that is pretty much our conference, our premier conference that we're running every year. This time again, it's in person in Sydney on the 30th of June. So if you can make it to Sydney, or maybe you are from Sydney, make sure you join that conference. We've got panels, Q&A sessions, roundtables. We've got presentations with demonstrations on products like the one we're presenting today. We have a bit of an outlook on new products that we're going to be rolling out later this year. And we really want to drill down into industry-specific use cases using our products. All right. Special thanks goes out to our sponsors, Accenture, Capgemini, and Deloitte Digital, for helping us put this conference together. If you can't make it to Sydney, there's a virtual version of Connect as well. I'm going to share the link in a minute. In mid-August, we're actually going to have another conference, MuleSoft Forum, based in Melbourne, in Convention Centre Place in South Wharf at the Convention and Exhibition Centre. So that takes place from 9 to 3:30. And again, it's a little bit of a scaled-down version of Forum. But again, we're bringing everyone together for customer panels, keynotes, and demonstrations as well. So for all people in Melbourne, make sure you join the forum. I'll post the link for forum later as well in the chat. For those of you in Sydney, as you know, we're running MuleSoft meetups in Sydney as well. And They're ahead of us. They're running their first in-person meetup event in a while since the pandemic started, essentially, on the 23rd of June at CloudWorks office. So for those of you in Sydney in the audience, if you can make it there, topic will also be Universal API Management and Flex Gateway, using an example from a multinational insurance company. A couple of webinars that we're running. Again, as you can see, the topic at the moment, it's all on Universal API Management. So if there are still some open questions and you want to learn more, you want to drill even a little deeper, 21st and 22nd of June, we're running webinars globally. So if you're based in Australia, it's on the 22nd of June at 1 p.m. For those of you in the UK, it will be the day before 21st of June there. I'll share the link there for that. And for those of you who are MuleSoft customers or partners, you will have access to our quarterly product roadmap webinar that's taking place on the 6th and 7th of July. So you'll know that already. It's a webinar we run every quarter. We talk a little bit about the innovation that we've worked on over the past 6 months, and we'll give an outlook about the new innovations that are coming over the next 6 to 8 months as well. So we'll talk about Universal API Management again. We'll talk about new capabilities in Partner Manager, Code Builder, a new innovation happening in the development space, and we will introduce CloudUp 2.0, so the next generation of CloudUp, which we're planning to roll out over the next couple of months, and we'll describe what that platform upgrade will entail. So product roadmap webinar, not one to be missed. Friends of Max, you'll know that one. We're constantly rolling out new videos on specific use cases, very small sizes, only 15 to 20 minutes on a particular topic. Of course, we rolled out an introduction into Flex Gateway, which you will see today. And we will roll out over the next couple of weeks and months additional Friends of Max videos on Flex Gateway that go into specific topics around Flex. So just go into YouTube or into Google and type in Friends of Max, and you'll have access to all of these videos. For those of you who are not receiving our newsletter yet, so all of the topics that we're presenting today and also these announcements, they are usually announced in our customer newsletter, any connectors that we're rolling out, products that we're rolling out. So feel free to subscribe on our website, mulesoft.com, to customer newsletter to be on top of everything new in the MuleSoft world, get access to resources, updates that are also specific to your industry. If you have been in the MuleSoft universe for a while, you may want to think about becoming a MuleSoft mentor. You can apply, mulesoft.com/mentors. It's a great community program, which is a supplement to the meetups that we're running. MuleSoft mentors, people like yourself, individuals that are really interested in the MuleSoft platform, that are sacrificing a part of their evening to join meetups, to learn about exciting new technologies. You can be a developer, an architect, IT lead, CTO, admin. So if you want to help others build their career, and if you want to advance your own personal brand and professional brand, then apply to become a MuleSoft mentor. A lot of people who've participated in meetups or who've presented at meetups have turned out to be fantastic mentors for our community. Right, that's all from me. So if you want to share your experience, whether you like this meetup or not, please tweet using the hashtag MuleSoft Meetups. You will receive a survey at the end of this with some feedback. Would be great to get your feedback so we can learn what we can improve. And if you've got any advice or you want to become a speaker, please reach out to us, to Carlos, Adam, and myself, or to meetups@mulesoft.com. We're always looking for interesting and great speakers and great examples. And because Sydney is cruising ahead with in-person meetups, we have to do the next one in person as well. There's just no other choice. So September 2022, we're planning to do an in-person meetup again. Currently firming up the event with one of our partners. Hope it works well. So look out for an email about the next meetup. And with that, I will hand over to Carlos and Tim to talk to us about Universal API Management.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. You said you were going to finish at 5:40, and it's 5:40. I can't believe it. That was very exact. Very good. Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Excellent. So, as Daniel mentioned, basically, we are going to do, for those of you who haven't heard or still want a refresher of Universal API Management and its component, and then we are going to deep dive into an actual demonstration. So maybe many of you have already seen this introduction, but for those of you who are new to Universal API Management, then basically we just want to set the scene. As you know, MuleSoft for many years has been a leader in two categories, iPaaS and the full life cycle of API management. Universal API Management is basically a collection of both new and existing capabilities. And the whole idea is to bring the same level of capability that we are able to, and we have been able to offer for the Mule API for many years to any type of API, regardless of its underlying technology, regardless of where it's running, the platform, whatever. And so if we analyze this across different personas or different stages of the life cycle, then we can see that very clearly. Let me just give you an example. Across these four personas, developer, API owner, architect, and API product manager. Previously, from an API, Mule API perspective, let's start with the developer. Let's say this is a spec writer who basically was going into design center. They were creating API specs, and basically they were pushing that into Exchange. Everything was fine. And that's pretty much the steps that were followed by this persona in MuleSoft. But we also know that there is the same persona in a different team or even in a different project or different company, obviously, that are using other technologies, open source technologies or Microsoft technologies or whatever other type of technology in order to create these API specs and build those microservices. We don't want to basically stop them from doing that. So instead of that, Universal API Management is going to expand that capability. How? Well, for this particular case, there's going to be, we have a new CLI, an API catalog CLI that I'm going to show you how it works in a minute. And basically with this API, with this CLI, you can discover and catalog any third-party microservice and then push that into Exchange. Why do we want to do that? Because one of the top problems in an enterprise is, especially those companies that have a lot of microservices, is that they don't even know what they have. So by not knowing what they have, they always end up duplicating effort, creating the same microservice multiple times, etc. So having full visibility of all of these different microservices gives you ability not only to reuse, but also to ensure that it has the right level of protection and visibility. If it doesn't, then that's when it comes to the next phase. From an API owner perspective, then you can use other products inside the Universal API Management umbrella in order to secure and add the right level of visibility with Flex Gateway, for example. And again, I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. And then this goes on, like, from an operations point of view, we provide full end-to-end visibility of the Mule API. We also want to expand these capabilities for any type of API. So for all of these microservices that might be running elsewhere in an EKS environment or an ECS environment or an AKS environment or or simply it's a monolith application running anywhere, then we want to also ensure that from an architecture and security point of view, we can ensure that all of the APIs that are being part of those applications are conformant with the standards and regulatory policies that need to basically meet. And if not, then we can know that very clearly using API governance that happens to be another product within the universal API management. And then finally, from an API product manager perspective, as you know, we have products like Exchange, we have ACM, we have a lot of things, and we are going to further simplify later this year with Experience Hub, but basically is going to simplify the way in which we can create internal and external API portals to basically to have a better consumption of those APIs as well. So just to give you a full coverage of the API management from a gateway perspective, let's start from the top right. Sorry, the bottom right. You know about the embedded MuleSoft gateways that are running embedded on the runtime. Normally, they are deployed in Cloud Hub, RTF. We also have the Anypoint for Service Mesh. That is great if the customer is already using Istio. That's perfect. We can bring other enterprise policies on top of Istio, and then we can provide that level of cataloging visibility to those microservices. Now, with this new Flex Gateway, basically, we can have the ability to provide the right level of protection and visibility to any type of application, any type of API, whether it's running with Istio or not, you know, regardless of where it is running, we can basically use it. And there are basically two base modes to operate and configure and operate a Flex Gateway. It is connected mode and local mode. It is exactly the same core behind the scenes. It is just how you are going to configure and operate the Flex Gateway. In connected mode, you are going to be using the platform, the Anypoint platform, whether it is through the web UI or through APIs, the Anypoint platform APIs, in order to configure that Flex Gateway. The demo in the demo that I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to be doing that connected mode demo. Local mode, and just to finish with connected mode, all the API telemetry is also pushed by default to the platform itself. So we can use Anypoint monitoring in order to basically analyze all the throughput and everything, all the log aggregation that is coming from those APIs. With local mode, there will be cases where you still want to register from a usage perspective. You still want to register your Flex Gateways, but all the API telemetry is going to stay within a firewall, for example, and all the configuration is going to be done internally within the firewall, and all the API telemetry is going to be pushed to existing dashboards, like you may be running like with Kiali or Grafana or log aggregations with New Relic or Splunk. In those cases, then local mode will be the best way. But again, it is the same core behind the scenes. So now, finally, talking about deployment patterns, you know, from a deployment pattern perspective, Flex Gateway, as the name indicates, it is very flexible, and it basically follows how an application is running, and that is going to give you the clue that is the best way in which you can deploy Flex Gateway. So if an application happens to be a monolith application running on a VM in some data center, or it happens to be a SaaS application, or happens to be, you know, simply just sitting on a VM or bare metal, then, well, probably you want to have Flex Gateway running standalone as close as possible to that application, ideally in the same data center, and that is going to basically provide the right level of protection and visibility to those APIs. But not all applications are in this category. Some applications will be distributed microservices running in clusters. So in those cases, you can deploy the same Flex Gateway inside the cluster. For example, if it's a Kubernetes cluster, then you can install it as an ingress controller, and then it's going to be running as any ingress controller. But basically, we come with enterprise policies that can be applied to all of these different microservices that are running inside the cluster. Or Flex Gateway can also be deployed on their own pods or as sidecar containers together with other applications, so that, you know, it can provide that fine-grained protection to those applications in place. So yeah, so lots of options depending on what you need. Most likely there will be a combination of the three of them in any more complex topology. In a normal, in a production solution, you are not going to have one or only. Normally, you are going to have multiple of flex gateways running in different modes, depending on the type of APIs that you want to protect. And with this, let's run into the actual demonstration. This demo is very simple. It has 3 steps. Step number 1, it's all about discovering and cataloging an API or microservices that happen to be outside the default context of any point platform. So in this case, the API specifications of microservices that were developed with third-party technologies, and they happen to be somewhere else in another Git repository. We want to discover them and catalog them. Once we have that, we are going to push these assets into Exchange, and then at that moment there will be all of the benefits from Exchange will be with us. We can discover these assets, we can subscribe to these assets, we can basically have a understanding if these assets are properly secure or not, and if not, then we can basically jump to the next step, which is adding a flex gateway to protect and add visibility to these APIs. And finally, a team is going to show you the next phase, which is like, regardless of what type of API, whether it is running on MuleSoft or not, or whether it's a Lambda running on AWS, whatever it is, there is a way in which we can provide API governance to any API. And then we can contrast our APIs against like rule sets that are best practices in the industry or government mandates, and then determine if that is compliant or not. So let's start with the first step, the discover and catalog of APIs. So this it is through the CLI, as I mentioned. It's called the API Catalog CLI. It is a node package. So as long as you have version 16 or above of a Node.js, then basically you can do a simple npm install, and basically you are going to have that API CLI with you. And there are basically two main ways in which you are going to use the API. What I'm going to do right now in front of you, which is basically going across multiple microservices and doing like a harvest mode, like I'm going through all of these, discovering all of them, cataloging them, and pushing them into Exchange. Or, and ideally, there is going to be also an OR, where you are going to use the CLI as part of a CI/CD pipeline. In which case, basically, that is the part of the life cycle of a microservice. Let's say, for example, you have a payments microservice that it's running, it was developed with Node.js. And at some point, you may want to add a new operation on that API specification, ability to do something else, or the payload changed, and you have other parameters. And then basically you just change that, you add another version of your API, and then push that into your Git repo. The CI/CD pipeline is going to pick that up and is going to basically use that CLI as part of the pipeline in order to determine that there was a change in that API spec, and that basically needs to be reflected. It has to be published into Exchange. And then once you do that, then as part of the life cycle of this microservice, you are always going to have in Exchange whatever is the latest of your microservices. So let's actually jump into this quick demo. For this, let me just jump into this side. Basically, as I said, when you have the API catalog, then basically you are going to have, it's going to allow you to do multiple things. Ideally, you just want to do 2 things. You want to create a descriptor, which is basically the harvest mode in which it goes and introspect and captures all the API specifications that are in that particular project, or potentially multiple projects, like what I have in this case. And then it is going to create a catalog.yaml that then you are going to use to push that into Exchange. Okay. So if I show you what I'm setting right now from a command point of view, a command line point of view, then you can see here that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 microservices. Okay. And if I show you the actual content of these microservices, you can see this is the actual source code. This is the actual source code of these microservices that happen to be developed with Node.js. So what I'm going to do is basically to do a create descriptor command on top of all of these different microservices, so that when I do this, the tool is going to go across all of them, and it's going to find everything that it can. It is going to, in this case, obviously find the API specifications, whether they are in RAML format or OAS format. If I have a markup documents that are part of my APIs, then also this is going to combine them, it's going to use them as part of whatever it finds, and then all of that is going to be part of a new file. So now if I do an ls, then you can see that it created this catalog.yaml. That is basically this everything that it found across all of the different microservices that are in my path. If I open this, I'm just swapping. If I open this API catalog YAML, then I can change things here as well. Like for example, in this case, I can say, you know what, I want to add tags. Let's say that all of these things are part of an e-commerce application. So I'm going to basically add all of this into everything that it found. That's fine, but I'm going to add other things, for example, and I'm going to add a tag that is called e-commerce across all of my microservices. And potentially I can go and change, for example, at the top, I can change my accelerator to capital A if I want to, etc. Right? And the whole idea of this is that by doing that, then I am going to be able to do a publish asset. So by doing a publish asset, and then just do a help so that you can see all the parameters that it is expected. Obviously, you need to authenticate to whatever endpoint platform you're going to be pushing these assets, whether it is like a token or a connected app with a client ID and secret, or you provide your username and password, whether it's through a command line or whether you create an environment property. It's up to you how you do it. But basically, once you authenticate, then it's basically a matter of doing API catalog, publish asset, and then that's it, enter. And then by doing this, when you go into your exchange, then basically you refresh, and if this was like a 5 or 6 different microservices that you wanted to push, then all of them are going to be there. Like in this case, it pushed into catalog, shipping, order, CRM, and the payments a microservice. Okay, all of them will be in exchange. And as I said, if you do that CLI as part of the life cycle of the microservice, it is always going to keep it up to date. Like in this case, it is just the version 1.0.0 that it found, and it has the tag that basically we created. And right now we are in exchange land. So all of the benefits that we have with exchange now, we have them with this. So I can go into my API. I can basically test this against a mocking service, and basically it is going to return a response that is compliant with API spec. I can basically go into code examples across different programming languages. I can basically see the version and manage the different versions that I potentially have. And also very importantly, it will also remember that it will generate that connector. So it could be a microservice that is developed with Node.js, but now because you have visibility of that in Exchange, it means that now potentially you want to create a process API that is going to be consuming multiple of these microservices. And now you can basically just get that in your Anypoint Studio. And then you have a very simple way now to invoke all of these different microservices. So see how quickly I identify exactly what these microservices do without having to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so that's the first step. So coming back to
Carlos, we do have a question in the chat. We do have a question in the chat, Carlos. How does create descriptor know which folders are containing an API, and it should create catalog YAML for them?
Yeah. So if you do it like what I just did, like across all of them, so from that path onwards is going to do that search recursively. Or you can basically add a parameter to say, like, just do it in this particular directory, etc. But the whole idea is that in a CI/CD pipeline, it's going to be across that project only. And it's going to basically harvest everything that it finds within that project, which potentially is more, it's like a wiki page that is combined together with API spec, etc. But if you have multiple paths and you don't tell it from there, it is going to go across everything that it finds from that point onwards. Great question. Yes. Okay. So now that we have discovered and cataloged our 5 or 6 microservices, then it's basically we can tick that first box, which is now we have fixed a big problem, which now we have full visibility. Okay, so now let's jump into the second part of the problem, which is, let's pick one of them. Let's pick the payments microservice, and let's add protection and visibility to this. Okay, so for this, remember that Flex Gateway gets deployed on wherever you want. In this case, I have my payments microservice running on a VM. So as I said, ideally, if this is part of a cluster, then ideally I'm going to put it inside the cluster. I'm going to put Flex Gateway inside the cluster. Okay, but let's say that this is not. It is running on a VM. So I'm going to put Flex Gateway on a VM, or on the same VM, or potentially another VM, but as close as I can to this microservice. So I can obviously minimize the man-in-the-middle attacks and all these different problems. And then we're in this demo where I'm going to deploy Flex Gateway. I'm going to create this routing rule. I'm going to deploy the Flex Gateway in connected mode, so that all the API telemetry is being pushed into the control plane, and then we can apply some policies on top. Okay, so let's actually get to it. Before I show you, let me just show you this payments microservice. So this payments microservice is actually the API spec. We borrow it from one of our accelerators, which is the SAP S/4HANA Invoice Payment System API. But we did all the implementation with Node.js behind the scenes, and that's basically the code that I just showed you before. And the reason, and also we shipped this microservice with a Swagger UI, so that just naturally you can basically try it out. You know, not everyone has an exchange, so we just put this Swagger UI so that basically you can execute, and basically it just returns this response, and you can see that it is running on this VM locally that I have here. If I jump into my terminal, I can do basically the same thing. I can do a call on localhost on port 3000. And then basically I'm getting the same JSON payload against this microservice that I'm running here as a Docker image. Okay, so that's fine. So I am hitting that payments microservice because I SSH inside the VM where it is running. But let's actually try to protect it so that we can access it through the Flex Gateway. So the first step in this journey is to go into the runtime manager. So let's jump into that. And then you can basically get new trials, and you are going to see all of these assets. All of these entitlements are already available by default. So then click on Flex Gateway, and then you can see that we've been playing a lot. But basically, when you create a new gateway, you have multiple options. You can deploy it, as I said, depending on the application that you want to protect. You can deploy it as an operating system service. You can deploy it as a Docker container, which is what I'm going to do today. Or you can deploy it inside a Kubernetes, whether it's a sidecar or an ingress controller. So let's click Docker, and you can see that this is the Docker image of Flex Gateway. It is by default publicly available in Docker Hub. So you can basically go and pull it. Okay. Once you pull it, then you are going to see that the next step is to register. So the registration, actually, let me just copy this into a text pad so that you can see it larger. Okay, so you can see that we are actually doing a Docker run of this same Docker image that basically we have available in Docker Hub. And internally within this image, we have a CLI for Flex Gateway. That is the Flex CTL. And we are using that to simplify the registration of this Flex Gateway against our account. So ultimately, what we are doing is, you know how with Mule servers, we need that license in order to certify that we have a license to use the Mule server, etc. All of these things are super simplified with Flex Gateway, because with this command, we are going to return the actual certificate that we need in order to run Flex Gateway. Where are we going to run it? Well, whatever you specify. In this case, I'm going to say pwd so that it does it in whatever directory I run it. Let's give it a name. So let's call this Mail Meetup 1 or Flex Gateway 1. Okay. And then have a look at this. I didn't have to worry about generating this token. This is a real token. And if I go back and I come back again, this is going to generate a new token. So this is already identifying myself against my account. Okay. You can use a connected app with a client ID and secret, or you can use username and password. But this is a very simple way to just authenticate yourself and point to the org that you want to install it against. And have a look at this. The connected mode that I'm using is true, is set to connected equals true, which basically means that I'm going to be registering this a Flex Gateway in connected mode. So let's actually go and try this. So let me jump to the same terminal that I was using before. Let me just go into my another directory that I prepared before. Let's go into this directory. So as you can see, this directory is completely empty. I don't have anything inside this directory, okay? So I'm going to paste that, and assuming that I didn't add any typo or anything, then within a couple of seconds, it is going to basically say like, yep, I'm done. So what did it do? It basically, first of all, downloaded a certificate that I said that, this is basically saying that I have a license, etc. It's valid for how long, etc. This is my private key, and this is the configuration of my Flex Gateway. Basically, it's like my account, the org ID, etc. Okay, and then if I jump into the runtime plane, hold on, let me just do this. If I jump into my runtime manager, you can see that this one, the Melbourne MuleSoft FG1, it's already created. It has zero replicas and disconnected because I haven't started any Flex Gateway, but it was already registered in connected mode so that we can see it. Okay, so let's go back into the suggested steps. So we did the registration, and yes, we got these files. And then now the next step is to start the actual gateway. So let's copy this command. Let me go back into my text pad so I can make this larger. Okay, so it basically, I'm going to do a Docker run this again, and I'm going to basically say like, where are these 3 files that you downloaded? So let's run this within the same folder. So let me just basically say like, well, it's going to be here, like whatever is my folder. Okay, and I think I did something wrong, right? Yeah, there you go. That looks weird. What port I want to expose? In this case, let's say 8081. Let's pick one randomly, and then it is telling me that what is the UUID that you want to, that basically you generated in the previous step. So the UUID happens to be this name here. As you can see, all of these 3 files have the same name. So let's copy this one, and let's basically paste that in. Okay. It looks right. So let's copy this command, and let's go here, and let's basically paste it, and let's hope the demo gods are with us this evening. Okay, so it is basically going to, there you go. It just finished. It said like, yeah, I was able to run it. So now if we go back into my runtime manager, then my Flex Gateway is going to be connected. And you can see that it has 1 replica. If you wanted to create multiple replicas, actually very simple. As you can see, the only thing you have to do is to repeat the same step, like you can do to start a new replica. It's exactly the same step. The only thing is that you have to basically define the same Flex name over and over and over. So it's going to get subscribed to the same gateway, and then it is just going to be multiple replicas that could potentially be running on different VMs, etc. Okay. So we are almost there. So now that we have the Flex Gateway, let's jump into the API manager and create an API create an API that is going to be protecting our payments microservice. Okay. So let's click New API. Let's select, in this case, Flex Gateway. Have a look at this. These are basically the 3 different options that I mentioned as gateways: the service mesh, a normal traditional Mule gateway that is embedded at the runtime, and the Flex Gateway. So let's search for our Flex Gateway. Let's pick that up. This is where the beauty of having discovered our microservices, because now I can basically just select the microservice that I want to protect from Exchange. Okay. If I have other versions, you can choose it. This is basically the default version. Let's just give it a name. Let's just call it payments. So the implementation URI is the actual implementation of the underlying microservice, the upstream service that I want to protect. Okay, so let's jump back into our payments, and let's do an if config, and let's pick the IP address of this VM where my payments microservice is running. So, and remember that it was running on port 3000. So I just put that in. Consumer endpoint is if you have a load balancer or a way to externally access your Flex Gateway. In this case, we are going to test that locally, so we don't have to put anything there. Let's not add any path. And this is basically the port that I exposed in Docker in the second step, as you probably remember. So let's go next. Let's click Save and Deploy. So what is going to happen right now, assuming that everything I did was right, is that it is basically going to configure this microservice. So if I go back into my terminal and I jump into this guy, you can see that it picked it up. It created that routing rule into my payments microservice that is on port 3000, etc. Okay, so let's actually prove that this is the case. So if I go here and let's do a call command to localhost. But rather than go, and this is the VM of the Flex Gateway, and rather than going into 3000, which was where the payment service is running, let's go into the port where my Flex Gateway is running. And let's do payments. And there you go. So now I am hitting the microservice through the Flex Gateway. And that route was created. And it worked. It returned the same JSON payload. So just to finish, and by the way, all of that hits and everything that we're going to start being shown in this matrix. But let's just add a policy. Let's just to prove that actually I can now protect my microservice. Let's add a quick policy that we can test quickly, which is this basic authentication. Let's add a username and password. Let's call this max password mule. Let's basically, yeah, we can basically keep the latest version and apply this to all the users. All the API methods. So, and I just save it. So what if I go quickly and I do it quickly enough, you can see that this guy is moving. So now it is adding that policy. As you can see here, it is basically adding that policy that is basically now protecting the endpoint. So now if I try the same thing again, it fails. And if I do a -v, you can see that it is failing because it is unauthorized. Okay, so if I want to now authorize it, then basically I just add a max mule, and then that's it. I can fetch my microservice going through the right policy that I enforce, etc. Okay, and as I said, just to finish, all of the hits, everything that I'm doing right now, they are going to start being shown. You can see here that basically all the 2 or 3 hits that I'm doing, then basically they are being reflected automatically in the dashboards. From here you can jump into the endpoint monitoring, where this is basically the tool that we use for Mule APIs to analyze, create. It will create a built-in dashboard, but you can basically create your own custom dashboard with whatever dashboards or charts or all the different metrics that are being pushed from the Flex Gateway, and then you can have full visibility without having to install anything or worry about anything else. So just to pass it on to Tim, basically what we basically achieved now is a big tick on number 2, what basically means that we have, after we discover and catalog our microservices in step 1, then we deployed a Flex Gateway to protect and add the right level of visibility to our microservice in step 2. And then over to you, Tim, to cover point 3.
Yeah, there's a few questions in the chat. Answer them in the chat, just writing in, so Tim can continue.
Will do.
Thank you, Carlos. And let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, works well. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, thanks, Carlos, for the great presentation and demo about API catalog and Flex Gateway. So now let's talk about API governance. So as we observe, it's getting harder to ensure consistent security, quality, and conformance to the various industry standards with the spike of the APIs. And API security challenge have emerged, I think, as the top concern for most of the businesses. Those unmanaged and unsecured APIs create vulnerabilities that could potentially, introduce multi-million-dollar security incidents. So API governance is a major concern for most of the IT leaders. So obviously, we don't want to add overheads to the development, by introducing the additional review cycles. But still, we want to avoid the potential compliance incidents. So good news is we released that endpoint API governance, which is one of the new capabilities under the Universal API Management family. The API governance can ensure within the consistent security and quality without sacrificing, the development speed. So with endpoint API governance capability, we can automatically apply the industry standards to our API contract and the definitions through the API platform UI, or you can also plug it into your CI/CD pipeline by using the CLI command. Also, we can share the governance best practices by publishing the rule sets into the endpoint exchange to share with other developers in your team. So we can also enable developers to apply governance rule sets at design time in the design center. API governance can also help you to empower the security team to operationalize the governance. You can observe the overall conformance from a single place, and you can automatically govern the new APIs published into Exchange. So it's a very quick introduction. So I think enough theory. Maybe let's get into a demo. Okay. So if you now get into the endpoint platform, you can see this option called API governance. So the API governance, we can start from create a new profile. And for the second step, basically we can include the rule sets into the profiles. And if you go to open your Exchange now and go to MuleSoft, switch to the filter by the rule sets. So currently, MuleSoft offers these 6 rule sets. For example, the endpoint best practice and open API best practice, etc. And if you click into one of that, you can see what rules are included in this particular rule sets. For example, for this endpoint best practice, this bunch of rules is the violation rules, and this bunch of rules are warnings, right? So by click each of the rule, you can get more details to understand, what's the logic behind this rule by the description here. Okay. So let's go back to this profile setup window. So you can include one or multiple rule sets into this profile, and then later on, we will use these rule sets to validate the APIs. And in the step 3, we set up the filter criteria, basically that can filter what APIs from your exchange you want to include into this profile, and then later on will get validated by the rule sets. Okay, we can filter the API by tags and also by the categories. Okay, so step 4, the notification is enabled by default. Which means if the validation returns issues, it will send the notification to the API publisher or the API contact person. Right. So let's move on. So I give my profile called best practice demo. Click. So like you see previously in the Exchange, we have this 6 out-of-box rule sets provided by MuleSoft. So let's choose the endpoint best practice rule sets, and next. This is where you set for the filters. I will say, okay, at the moment, for anyone who has been attended to, the MuleSoft training, you must be familiar with this American Flight API. So I just borrow this from the training course and deploy it into my Exchange. And I give it a tag called Meetup with my email as contact person. So here you can filter your APIs by the tags and choose the APIs. Okay, like mentioned previously, the notification by default is always enabled. Okay, can I quickly review and create. So after we create the profile, what's going to happen is the platform will validate the API we included in this profile. And once the validation is done, for example, the normal or at risk. Basically, if the conformant rate is above 70%, it will be normal, otherwise at risk. If you want to, this is the API governance monitoring screen. For those figures, you can find more details from the MuleSoft documentation. Just go to the API governance and then go to monitor API conformance. From here, you can see the explanation like what normal means, what at risk means, the different status in here. Okay. So yeah, so this is a profile we just created, and in this profile, at the moment we only have one API, and if it's still doing the validating, okay, it's done. So the validation returns like it identified 16 violations and 41 warnings for this API spec. So if you click these violations, you can see the details, like what kind of violation there. For example, might missing the display name, or the naming convention maybe not comply with the rule set, something like this, right? Then if you want, you can click this notify owner icon. So you can send the notification either to the publisher of the API, or you can send the contact person to the API, or you can name the email address in here. Contact person here come from the API in the exchange. You can update the contact person here if you want. Okay. All right. So yeah, this is where we can validate the API through the API governance. The other option we can validate it is through the API design center. So basically, the developers can include the same rule set as a dependent, as one of the dependents into your project, and you can validate your spec on the fly. For example, this is the same American flight API. We'll add this AP endpoint best practice as the dependency. So once we add this rule set, let's just wait for finish the validation. Okay, looks like it's ready. And from the bottom, the project errors, you can see exactly the same. You can see the similar figure like how many errors and how many warnings. Let me turn off the warnings and only focus on the errors for now. Let's open the first one. It's complaining like the missing the display name. Just click this link. It will take us to the line where the error comes from. So if I just say simply provide the display name, then the error is disappear. Okay, disappear. So you can do the same for others. For example, this one complaining missing content type in the header. Let's go to the line 28. It's here. So headers and content type, the string. Then the error should disappear. Yeah, disappear. So basically, you can the developer can go through this result and fix the violations one by one. So just to save the time for us, I just copy it into here. Right. I fixed most of the errors, but I still have few here. Okay, this one is complaining the camel case, and I think the error comes from the flight, this data type RAML file, data type here. Change it to the camel format. It's disappear. And the last one is complaining the date format for the line 14, then we get back to the dollar type again. Oh, departure date. Okay, we successfully fixed all of the errors. Okay, this looks great, much better now. But if I turn on warnings, well, I still have 30 plus warnings, and maybe these warnings you think is too much or not relevant to your business. Then what we can do for the next I want to demo is how to create a custom rule set and use a custom rule set to validate this API. Okay. So it always the easiest way to do the custom rule set is we modify it based on the existing rule set. For example, let's go back to our endpoint best practice rule set, and you can download it to the local. All right. Once you download it, it's a zip file, and just open it. Then you will find that there is a YAML file called rule set YAML. Okay, from the downloaded file, I should copy it outside of this folder and make it clean. All right. Let me open this file. So this YAML file is the configuration for the rule set. And you remember previously in the exchange, we see the violation rules, warning rules is described on top. And then for each of the rule, the logic you can find at the bottom. For example, let's see the camel. This is how it validates if the field name is following the camel case fields or not. Right? Okay. So firstly, to create a custom rule set, let me just open I call this custom rule set as Meetup. Okay. All right. Because I want to get rid of this rule set for the warnings, so I just highlight them and comment them out. Now, basically, I disable the warnings rule sets from this file. Then, if you want to do more, for example, maybe your business is not prefer the camel case fields. You might think, okay, we are happy with uppercase fields. Right. So you can do it like this, and so let's go to the camel. The easiest way just modify based on the existing one, and just duplicate that. And over here, I will call it and you can see for the camel case field, it's using the regular expression to do the validation. So in order to validate if I want to use the uppercase fields, I just quickly modify it something like this. Yep, that's all I need to do. So basically, this rule will validate if your data type field is all uppercase or not. All right. For this demo purpose, I will not go for this way because it's kind of conflict with the camel case fields. I just disable the one I just created. Okay. So you can also update the description. You remember previously when we look at the violation results from the API governance, there's some descriptions, and those descriptions come from the message from the rule set setup in here. Okay, you can modify that as well. Okay, let me save this change. And so in order to create the custom rule set, basically the first step is to, like what we just did, create a custom rule set. You can modify based on the existing standard rule set. Okay, Secondly, we can validate if the rule set is valid or not by using this anypoint CLR command. Let's do it now. So I just provide my customer rule set file path to this command. Run it. Okay, looks like the format looks good. Bear in mind is this validate command only focus on the format of the file. It will not validate the logic you put into your rule. For example, to validate as uppercase or camel case, it's not going to do that. Okay. So after we validate the rule set is okay, and step 3, we generate the documentation for the customer rule set. The documentation here means, for example, let's go back to here. You see, if we this documentation here, and if we open one of the rule, you see the descriptions. This is what we call the documentation. Right? So if we create the documentation by running this command, after we publish the custom rule set into Exchange, we will see the beautiful and nice descriptions for each of the rules. So let's run it. By the way, if you already installed anypoint CLI command in your local, it's better to just refresh and install the latest version, or otherwise you might not be able to see this governance function in your existing anypoint client. Okay, let's run it. Okay, I think it's finished. All right. This command will generate this doc.zip file, which including all of the documentation for this rule set. Okay, so the step 4, let's just simply manually zip the rule set file. We create the YAML file, compress. All right. So we zip it for the next command. The next command is the last step. We're going to publish the customer rule set into Exchange. So if you look at this command, so basically it's upload the asset to the Exchange. You can give the name for your rule set and the description. And in this property main file, as you remember, my rule set, customer rule set file name is rule set underscore meetup YAML. So that's why I leave it as this one. And after that, provide that zip file for your rule set. Then for the last part, gonna be the documentation zip file we created previously. Okay. All right, let's run it. When we're waiting for here, if you are interested about how to create the customer rule set, please go to the create a customer governance rule sets section in the documentation. So before you create any customer rule set, firstly, maybe check the idea portal to see if anybody else requests that rule set. And a little background is the rule set is using the AMF customer validator. Okay, basically it's an open source project. We use this open source project to create those rules and the validations. So just go to the bottom of this page and you can open the validation tutorial. From here, you can have a better understanding like how the rule set works and how to modify and create your own rule set. Okay, from it. Okay, the rule set publish is done. So we should be able to see it in, here we go, a meetup customer rule set. All right. And if you come into here, yeah. Oh, okay. I just refreshed. It scared me. I'm missing my documentation. Okay. You remember I disabled my warnings, so I can only got the violations now. All right. So cool. Let's go back to our previous create the profile, because now I wanted to use this custom rule set to validate my API. All right. I go back to profile. Edit. Go to the rule set. I can choose the Meetup custom rule set and disable the best practice. Next, I leave the API, everything else same as before, and update profile. Okay, voila, normal. All right, my API passed my custom rule set, of course, and it showed the status as a conformant. And if we open the API, sorry, if I go back to the API designer, and from my API designer, I also remove the previous endpoint best practice rule set. Okay, I'm going to remove this one, and using this custom rule set. Okay, I don't have any error, no warning, perfect. So now let's publish the updated spec to the exchange. Okay, done. Because I fixed all of the errors, and now if we check this API status, we can see it's a conformant in the exchange. All right. Okay. So that's pretty much the demonstration for the API governance.
Thanks, Tim. That was fantastic. A lot to learn. So if anyone has any other questions on the governance piece, please put it in the chat so Tim and the team can answer. And let's hand over to Adam for the quiz.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. Let me jump in. We're going to go straight into the quiz based on the time that we have. Let me share my screen in a moment. But if you were on our latest or most recent meetup, you would see that we've moved across to quizzes. As Daniel mentioned earlier, we do have some great prizes as usual for the top 3 people who get in the top 3 places. We have a training voucher. Oh, thank you. I'm going to share this. Thanks. Yes, so we will have a training voucher. We will have some MuleSoft swag as well to run. But anyone who has a web browser available or your mobile phone, jump into that URL that's on your screen right now, joinmyquiz.com. And very quickly, very shortly, I will give you the code in order to join. Okay. Let me share my screen here so you can see what I'm talking about. So the code is 959054. And hopefully after you put your name in, please use your real name if you want to win prizes. Now, with the MuleSoft swag, unfortunately, it's only people who are based in Australia that are going to be available for that prize. So I apologize for anyone outside of Australia this time around. But unfortunately, that's a constraint we have with the prizes for this meetup. Looks like we've got 13 people on at the moment. We've got around about 26 attendees, so I'll give it a few more minutes. Those still trying to work out how to join. Someone might have lost internet connectivity or something like that on their phone. So we'll just give it a few more seconds before we kick off for any latecomers. Okay, 10 more seconds and then we'll get started. There are some great questions tonight, some relating to the meetup, some general knowledge type of questions, as we always sort of throw in there, things that aren't MuleSoft related. So hopefully you've been keeping up with news and current events and things of Melbourne nature. Okay, let's get cracking. 18 people. You're still too slow, bad luck. All right, let's get into it. So for a warm up, we're going to have this question. It's a bit of a freebie. Are you ready for this quiz? The objective is to answer correctly. The quicker you can do it, you're obviously going to get more points. And we'll see the leaderboard as we go. As you can see, the timer sort of going down there as well. So we've only got a certain amount of time, but hopefully that was a bit of a warm up. There are a few people who didn't answer anything. So hopefully you've woken up now and can get across to answering the next questions. All right, here we go, the real thing. What is the name of the upcoming MuleSoft in-person event that is going to be held in Sydney? Keyword there, Daniel talked about this with the announcements a little bit earlier. Three people, ooh, just in time. Okay, time's up. Let's have a look at the leaderboard. Stuart on top. See if we can get him. Okay, the correct answer was MuleSoft Connect. So 14 people got that right. Please make sure you can try and get there if possible, or join the virtual version of that event. Okay, next question. In 2014, Beats Music and Beats Electronics was acquired by? Who acquired Beats Music and Beats Electronics? Should have gone to this view so you can see the options. Microsoft, Sony, Bose, or Apple? Okay, leaderboard. We've had some people come up. Quizzes. Unfortunately, probably not going to win a prize there, but Apple was the correct answer. You knew your history, you knew your technology, or if you've even got some Beats headphones, yeah, they're obviously all going to Apple now. Okay, next question. What are the modes that MuleSoft's Flex Gateway can operate in? I'm not going to read all of those options because it's going to take me probably the full time to go through them, but you can see them there. Something that Carlos covered off a little bit earlier. Most people have submitted their answers, which is good. And I think you'll jump to the leaderboard next. Kamal, hit the lead. Correct answer was local and connected. So keep that in mind for the Flex Gateway. One's obviously running locally and one's connected into the control plane. All right, moving along. Suspense is building. Queen Elizabeth II recently celebrated her Platinum Jubilee. How many years does this mark on the throne? So how many royal fanatics we have around, or people who've just been across the news? There's obviously a photo of her having a sandwich with Paddington Bear. You saw that footage, it was pretty funny. Okay, leaderboard first. Stuart jumped back into the lead with that one. Correct answer was 70 years. Good effort. I think she's 96 now, so she's doing well. Okay. Next question. Maybe back to MuleSoft now. Flex Gateway replaces Anypoint for Service Mesh. True or false? Does it replace Service Mesh? Waiting on one answer. Time's up. Jump to the leaderboard. Stuart's holding on pretty strongly there. Had a few movers coming up. So the correct answer was false. It doesn't replace Service Mesh. Different type of offering. I guess it's another area that we can, manage APIs. Another approach. Okay, next question. What team currently sits on top of the AFL ladder? We are a Melbourne MuleSoft Meetup. It's definitely not my Bombers who are there in the photo there. Which one of these 4 teams? Do you have one person still waiting to answer? Maybe they've dropped off or fallen asleep or got themselves another wine or a beer or a cup of tea, but that's okay. Okay, time's up. Correct answer? No, we'll go leaderboard first. One day I'll get that right. Quiz is into the lead. It's actually the Melbourne Demons as we are about to kick off the next round, which is tonight. So got that in just in time. Okay, next question. An 8 out of the 12, getting there. How many rule sets are provided by MuleSoft in Exchange? Now, this is when we're talking about API governance, the great presentation and demonstration that Tim took us through. You can remember how many rule sets are provided by MuleSoft by default. Leaderboard. George has made a bit of a move, which is good. Correct answer is 6. So you might have seen that when Tim went through his presentation. Prior to him creating a custom one, there were 6 rule sets. Okay, next question. What CLI command is used to publish custom rule sets to Exchange? Who was paying close attention here when Tim was publishing a custom rule set? A few different options there. Ooh, just got in time. Quiz is still at number 1. Correct answer is Anypoint CLI Exchange Asset Upload v2. Okay, moving along. Question 10. The Royal Melbourne Hotel is home to the oldest what in Victoria? A little bit of useless trivia for you. This was something that was new to me. Been doing some research with this quiz. I always like to put a bit of Melbourne trivia in there. Quiz is still number 1, Stuart number 2, and Oscar number 3. Correct answer is Pear Tree, believe it or not. Yeah, you can actually look that up, but it's got the oldest pear tree in Victoria, which still, yeah, is quite bizarre. Okay. Next question. What are the supported deployment models for Flex Gateway? Now, if you're paying attention to our last meetup, probably would have seen this question come up as well. We've had a few repeats this time around, but it's all the same content, and we want to make sure that you understand these concepts. Okay, I'm going to jump into the leaderboard now. A few movers there, but the order has not changed. So the correct answer is gateway instance, ingress controller, and container sidecar as well. We're almost there. API conformance applies only to API definitions that are published in Exchange as REST APIs. Is this true or false? Six more seconds. Okay, time's up. Everyone's made a bit of a move. Quiz is still in top. So the correct answer is false. Let's go.
It's actually true.
True. So I'm looking at the red and I've said false even though I was looking at the red. Of course it's true.
Thanks, Carlos.
REST APIs. Thanks, Tim. I think I've gone colorblind for a second there. All right, next question. This is the last question. Okay, do you want to end the quiz? That was actually the last question. So we are into the leaderboard. Third was Oscar, Stuart in second, and first was Quizzes. So we're going to have to probably go to the further details on the leaderboard to find out who the winners were and who are based in Australia that we can send out those prizes to. But thanks for being a part of the quiz this week, and yeah, really appreciate it. With that, I might hand it back over to you, Daniel.
Thank you. And the winner quizzes, if you can reach out to us with your real name, because I strongly assume that's not your real name. So we can send you our prize. So thanks everyone for joining. That was great on this cold Melbourne evening. Hope that was of interest to you. So as you can see, we're going to be rolling out a lot more information on Flex Gateway. If you want to learn more, go onto our website, check out the webinars that we'll be running in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you join forum and connect if you want to learn more. And in the meantime, until we reconvene in September, I wish you a good evening and see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. And thanks for the speakers.
Bye.
So Tim,
Thank you. Bye.
thanks a lot.
Yeah.